Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things.
The podcast.
I'm Macy.
And I'm Naomi.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're three anxious counselors who like to talk about deeply disturbing things.
Let's dive in. And I get to go first, but I was really distracted. We had a failed intro before that intro because I realized I really don't want this in the background.
Oh, why?
Why?
Because I've painted it and it's
Like,
horrible.
is bear eating children?
It's,
Is that all blood?
you know those dumb paint and sip nights?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I made.
Oh, God.
Bear eating children.
It could be.
Look at the carnage zone.
It was
Up closer.
it was one of those that looked
Yep.
way better at the time. And then the next day I was like, what in the actual
I've done it before too, and I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of this. And then yeah, you're right. After it's like, I
Okay.
shouldn't probably do this.
And that was supposed to be a dog, not a bear.
oh,
Really?
It really is a
And
really
see how bad it is.
Good bear.
It's a really good bear. The butt to head ratio is on
You
point.
should have just went for bear.
So bad.
Done.
Just go for bear. Are we in front of the heater? What is
I
happening?
know,
Like,
so
I'm like, how are you?
We
The heater
are. The heater's right there. Is it switched off?
No, I can tell you
You
it's
can
not.
close the vent, Sarah. It's like old fashioned where you go.
It's like a sauna.
There you
left.
go.
Yes.
All right. I get to go first tonight.
It's gonna be a long
I might
podcast.
have to take
My topic's a bit sad. So
Okay, so readjuster.
your
Affix.
face. I'm going to talk about hikikomori syndrome.
Okay.
That's a Japanese word. And linguistically, it's a combination of the word hiku, or draw or pull, and komoru, or seclude oneself. So it's about withdrawing from society, pulling back, being a shut-in. I think something similar to this exists everywhere in the world,
Mhm.
but there's unique aspects of Japanese culture that make
Mm.
hikikomori syndrome a unique phenomenon in Japan, I believe. So we'll talk about that.
Is this gonna tie in a little bit with like the suicide forest stuff we talked about?
No.
Okay.
I mean, no.
No?
I mean, indirectly.
Indirectly.
Everything's connected, as we've established.
Yes.
A 2015 review proposed 3 possible reasons why someone might turn hikikomori. It could be an overdependent youth that grew up with smothering families where they never gained autonomy or learned to trust people. So sort of like we have helicopter parents here. And, you know, a lot of people have given millennials a bad rap, calling them snowflakes and all that, because feel like they can't really adapt to society. And
Sorry, I was noticing the other rabbit on the table right there.
rabbits are everywhere.
Year of the rabbit.
Year of the Rabbit starts tomorrow. So another theory could be it's maladaptive independent youths who grow up in dysfunctional families, and that led to bullying and not having good relationships in school. So you'd pull back from society because you're not fitting in, because you had problems at home, and it sort of snowballed. And then the third theory is it's counter-dependent youths who are so burdened by like the pressures of achieving in school and careers that they withdraw from society. So those are 3 theories that have been put out about this. So as we go through it, you can think about what you think might be the causes of this. This has been described as a serious social issue in Japan for decades, but now it is getting worse. Hikikomori are those who withdraw from school or work and social life and just drop out completely from society. They may live off their parents, so they may completely rely on parents to support them, to buy food and, you know, provide housing.
Mhm.
They may play video games all day, all night.
Sounds, yeah.
So to qualify as being hikikomori, you have to have confined yourself in your house for 6 months or more.
So I think that's it. Yeah,
Oh.
that's a kind of a distinct feature from
Yeah.
some things that I'm thinking about, maybe some US culture things.
Mhm.
I mean, I kind of thought about, remember when World of Warcraft first came out and it was like people were like not feeding their
Right.
kids and not eating.
I mean, that still happens. People still play World of Warcraft.
So this isn't just video games. So there's a lot of, I watched a ton of documentaries about this, and some people don't even play video games, but I think that is an aspect of it.
Mm.
Maybe a subculture of hikikomori that are super into video games.
Mhm.
So 6 months or more, totally confined in your house, not going to school, not going to work, not participating at all in society. So last year, 2022, in Japan, there were 1.15 million people that were identified as hikikomori.
Wow.
So looking at how that breaks down by age, so the younger set, ages 15 to 39, was 541,000, so just over 500,000. And then ages 40 to 64 was the bigger percentage, 613,000.
I'm sure the data would be hard to get on this too, because with, the stigma associated, it's probably underreported, would be my assumption that families don't want to acknowledge it.
I 100% agree with you. It's likely underreported.
Mhm.
Concerningly, these numbers have doubled in the past few years. And that age group, that's the older age group, that's the larger age group, that is where this is becoming a big problem. Because if you're an older adult and you're living with a parent,
Mhm.
relying on them to support you, what happens when the parents
When
die
it switches.
or
yeah.
go into a care home and you've never cared for yourself and now you're 50 years old?
Big problem.
That's a big problem.
Mhm.
So they're calling this the 80-50 problem, because elderly parents in their 80s are now supporting hikikomori that are now in their 50s.
Jeez.
And it's been going on for decades. So their children, that are old, just don't have any
Life skills.
skills. They've not worked, they may not even know how to cook themselves meals or do anything like pay bills or any of that. Hikikomori are mostly men, but it affects all genders. So a couple of case studies, I watched a bunch of documentaries. One individual had barely left this tiny little room he lived in for more than 10 years. He said he keeps the TV on 24/7, even if he's not watching it, because the sound is comforting. And when it's silent, it reminds him that he's alone. He never leaves the house. He said he might spend the day on his futon just staring at the ceiling. And he said everything was fine in his life until he was bullied by his professor in college and by other students. And this trauma made him turn against others. And really, for him, he said it made time stand still. Like he didn't progress beyond that point. So at this time in the documentary, he was 32, but his room looked like a teenage room, like it's same stuff, same, decoration, same manga books all on a shelf.
Well, I don't honestly fully know about like Japanese culture and like mental health. Do they at all talk about that part? Like,
Yeah, they do.
they do.
It's like a self-inflicted prison.
Which is I would like depression, PTSD, agoraphobia.
Are you reading?
What?
Literally, I have those 3 words next.
Oh my God, you do? No.
Agoraphobia.
Depression, PTSD, anxiety, agoraphobia.
I think you side-eyed that.
I did not side-eye that.
So this individual said he's afraid of the world. Even a phone call or an email stresses him out, or obviously mental health therapists in this room. Hikikomori are unable to comply with Japan's strict cultural expectations for social interaction and the high value placed on work.
Right.
So when they can't do that, it makes them feel worthless.
Right.
There's a lot of shame attached to this, not only for the hikikomori, but for the parents of
Very
hikikomori.
collectivist, like everything really.
So this person relies on his mother to provide food for him. She spoke on the documentary saying she's ashamed of her son and tried to encourage him to go out, get a job. But is, a decade later, nothing's changed and has really given up and is at a loss for how to help him.
Mhm.
So my mental health, my mental health mind's going, I'm like,
Yeah.
depression, like,
Yes.
could it be PTSD? Are we looking at anxiety, agoraphobia? But then I dived into this, like, how is this related to, mental health diagnoses as we understand them here? So hikikomori is not an official mental health diagnosis, but has been defined by Japanese experts as having criteria. So it's not in the DSM, but there is criteria that they've defined. So one is you're spending most of the time at home. 2, no interest in going to school or working. 3, persistence of withdrawal for more than 6 months. 4, exclusion of schizophrenia, mental retardation. I don't believe we use that word anymore. Intellectual disabilities, I'll say instead, and bipolar disorder. So they're excluding those 3.
Okay,
And
Okay.
then,
that actually ruled out one diagnosis I was considering.
yeah, and they will also exclude anybody who has personal relationships, like friendships.
Okay, so if
That
you have
doesn't count.
friends, so like if you have actual friends and you're playing online with friends.
You're not hikikomori, according to this definition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious how they define friendship too, because there's a lot of people who have, like, even my niece and nephew have online friends that they've never
So
met
that's like
before.
right now.
Yeah.
Feels like summer. And
Yeah.
you're wearing a black cloak.
Might as well just start taking it off.
I'm just,
Thank God I'm wearing a
and a long sleeve shirt.
sleeveless.
Oh, it's like it is a sweater. She's wearing a sweater under.
I hope you have a tank under that if you have to go down another layer.
At least the heat's off.
So I think there's varying views on
Seeping in still.
the mental health aspect of this. One person, this quote I grabbed off a hikikomori website, said, "Not a mental illness, just I don't feel like working." Frustration and despair
I
of
get it.
middle-aged hikikomori. So
Well, yeah, I mean, and could it be like what we call like the midlife crisis, that what is like
well,
start
sometimes
somewhere
it
and
starts
then,
in teens.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like maybe it starts from that, like, I don't wanna, to now I
can't.
really I can't, and I want a red car or big truck.
So as you'll soon get into it, I think that it's not a homogenous group. I think there's different subgroups within hikikomori where mental health may play more than with other people. This was first identified in the 1990s when the post-tech bubble hit young people especially hard. And really today, people can get anything they want online. You do not have to leave your house. You can get food, you can get
Water.
medicine,
you can get anything
My son
delivered
was
right
just
to your
talking about
house.
that. Have you guys seen WALL-E?
Yes.
And he's like, I feel like we're just heading in the direction of those guys that are in their chairs, and like you just get everything handed to you.
And they were always staring at
And
screens.
they're always on the screens.
Mhm.
WALL-E is prophetic.
Yes.
That is
I love that person.
great.
Mhm.
So the existence of hikikomori means people will die alone out of sight. And there's a Japanese word for this, hodokushi, which means a lonely death. And I did that topic a while back on people that do cleaning, either crime scene cleanup, or sometimes they come and clean after somebody died alone and was there for an extensive period of time.
Right.
So hodokushi, or lonely deaths, need special cleaning. So there are special companies who clean these apartments of tenants who died alone. And often nobody knows they've died until there's an odor. So the bodies could be there for an extensive period of time, fluids soaking through flooring. The apartments, maybe messy because I never have anyone over, so there might not be that motivation to keep things tidy.
Mhm.
Maybe a lot of garbage, that kind of thing.
I read a research article recently that said, like, do you think that it would be better to, be in a really unhealthy relationship or just be single your whole life, like that route? Most people would say, well, being single would be better, because I'm not in an unhealthy, like fighting and blah, blah, blah relationship. And that's not what the research shows, because loneliness
Interesting,
and
yeah.
being alone actually has higher depression and earlier death
Mhm.
rates than people who are in some relationship of some kind,
Wow.
some connection. It is so freaking hot all of a sudden.
I feel
It's-
better
I think my wine hit
in
my
my
face.
sleeveless
It's like,
shirt. I'm
wow.
feeling good. So this cleaning company staff, I was so impressed by how respectful they were going into these places. They could be like making fun of it or grossed out by the piles of garbage or that kind of thing, but they, made sure to put things that look like it might be something, family might want separately and not just throw everything out. So I thought they were really great at their jobs. But they said people should pay more attention to others and build relationships with others in the community. But hikikomori may not be responsive to those efforts to connect, which is the other side of things. So what's to blame about this? Most people say modern Japanese society is what's to blame. So unlike here in the West, individualism is not valued in Japan. Individuals are expected to conform to the group, and hikikomori aren't able to do that. They're unable to fit into these norms of, work real hard, academic success,
Way
then
too
you
high
get into the
expectations.
career and you work really hard and, you are respectable and you don't bring shame upon your family by
So that's probably a
steering
huge
away
piece.
from that expected norm. And so when they can't fit into that, they end up feeling completely useless. They feel shame and guilt. A 56-year-old hikikomori whose parents died was found later emaciated, refused help from social work outreach, and then was himself found dead from malnutrition 10 days later. So that's that 80-50 problem. The parents of these 50-something-year-old hikikomori are either dying or they're going into care homes, and then their children are unable to care for themselves and they're dying alone. The parents of a middle-aged hikikomori were worried about what the future held for their child. Our son has no income, they said, but we're getting older. But some parents do not care. They're more callous in their response. One parent said, I was told hikikomori aren't ill, they're just lazy. So there's different perspectives from parents. But this crisis originally involved young people, but now it's in this new phase.
Because they're growing up.
They're growing up, the parents are getting older.
Yeah.
When you're 20 and
It's
you're
like
living at
allowed
home,
for a little bit.
it's different.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, it's just going to be like that bitterness and resentment just continues to grow and fester. And then it's like reinforced by society over and over and over again every day. What are you doing? Nothing. Again.
Right, there's judgment.
Yeah, there's
And
no
is a judgment.
Mm.
It's not, wow, that's great. You're taking time for yourself. You're doing something different.
I'm-
Going to the beat of your own drum. Right on you. It's not
I
that.
don't think I'd say that.
It's not that.
So has there been talk of help for this population or?
Well, and aside from that, do
And-
parents, what are parents like scared of like kicking them out of the door? Like, what's that?
Oh.
Is that the like we have to take care of our own no matter what?
Well, what would
Great
happen to them?
questions. They'd be out on the street.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but that does happen.
Yeah, I don't know if that happens like here.
Right.
I think that might be more of a here thing with that
Right.
individualism.
Right. Or or a lot of people
Or maybe
young people leave.
Maybe
home.
because there's shame, like at least you're hiding your kid at home, like nobody's seeing them. If you kick them out and then people be like,
That does.
Why is your son on the street?
That does bring up a good point though, because a lot of kids who may feel that here with the individualism piece will be like, F you parents, I'm leaving because they don't feel accepted.
Mhm.
Where there they kind of buckle down, okay, I'm gonna stay here because of the shame part, or I don't know. I
I'm
wonder
just
if that
withdrawing
makes it
from that.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So there are special social work programs that are focused on
Mm-hmm.
hikikomori. They have caseloads, they
Wow.
identify people, they try to reach out, but they said the biggest barrier is people refuse help.
Right.
And like here, there's that self-determination. So if they haven't applied for disabilities themselves, they can't get support from that department. And police can't get involved unless police decide to get involved.
Mhm.
So it's like a dead end street often.
Parents can't request it for them as they're getting to that point where they're gonna have to go into a,
The people still have that self-determination and have to
yeah,
accept help.
You can't force.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
force them off your property though, but that's where I think the line is on the parent side. Is like, I don't know, maybe that's too
Yeah, I don't know if culturally that is a
appropriate.
thing. Yeah, I think you would want to hide it.
Right.
Like, at least if they're in your house, nobody
It's
seeing that, you
seeing
can
it.
just deny it.
Right.
What son?
Well, and like I'm wondering about like
Of course, this is conjecture. If you're in Japan and you know something, please tell us.
right. I'm very culturally separated over here. So even things like LGBTQ plus stuff, I'm wondering like how much of that is like how many of those.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get into that.
I'm sorry, I know your topic before you say it.
I hate being predictable. One individual was
To
too.
me, that's not fair. I know you more than any person.
One
Yourself.
individual.
Better than
No.
you know yourself.
That's not fair.
One
That's not true at
individual
all.
was
She can keep that.
Yeah. One individual was too ashamed at being unemployed to reach out for help, even after his father that he was living with died. So he lived with the corpse for 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how deep the shame is at not having a job. Like being employed has such high cultural value in Japan. So it's a life spent in a bedroom, possibly reading manga, scrolling the internet, disconnected from others.
I mean, it's great.
There's a couple unique terms. A bottler is a hikikomori who pees into a plastic bottle.
Oh, I've known adult men who've done that, but usually it's substance related.
And a matsuler is a hikikomori who plays video games with a diaper.
I haven't met that yet, but it's probably exists.
And a former hikikomori explained that it's because they don't have the energy to go to the toilet and they can't take any interest in themselves. They feel like nobody cares about them. So
And that sounds like some heavy depression. Because like I know of adults where I'm like, because you don't move, your body hurts more. And like, but convincing them of that seems really challenging because they're like, no, but when I move, it hurts. But if you moved more, it would hurt less as you do it more, unless you have like a disability of some kind.
well, if you have such low sense of self,
Mhm.
like why wouldn't you just shit yourself? I think that's what this guy was getting at. Like you just have no interest in caring for yourself. You get so low.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about help for a hikikomori.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of resources to help a hikikomori. There's those social work programs that I mentioned, but
Kind of be fun to do like a 6-month, like just to see what that's like as a counselor.
yeah, there are a few programs and the government is kind of shining a light on this now because there's real motivation to mobilize the shut-ins. From a health perspective, you mentioned, loneliness poses an increased risk of mortality. It's exactly the same as the risk of obesity.
Mhm.
So loneliness and obesity have the same, you'll die sooner,
Mhm.
basically. Put it in a nutty shell. So usually it's the family that may come seek help because those are really unlikely to ask for it for themselves. So some family members will come forward, they'll creep forward. Since the hikikomori do not work, the family members usually come out because they're at that point of financial desperation. You know, they just can't continue to support their child. Like they're aging, they're not working anymore, they have limited income. And then they're also worried that nobody will be available to look after their child after they die.
Sorry, can we pause?
What's going on?
What hurts
Hold on.
What's happening?
back here? Got taken out right now.
We're having a plug issue.
Technical difficulties.
Did it fix?
There, yeah, that's it.
Okay. We don't want things to die because we have no power.
Low
These-
motivation saps the energy out of us all.
These parents are under a lot of strain.
Isn't the heat just kicked on again, sweating? It's snowing outside.
So the parents do have a lot of shame, and so it's hard for them to come forward. They might worry about what others think. Like, how could you do such a terrible job of raising your child? So there's quite a lot of stigma attached to being the parent of hikikomori. So that, I guess, goes back to why maybe they wouldn't kick them out, because that's going to make it more publicly known. So a program that I looked at utilized former hikikomori as peer support counselors. So I thought that was a good idea because the hikikomori might connect with them more readily.
Positive contagion.
Like less defenses, like, okay, you can relate to me. You know what it's like to wear a diaper and play video games. Like it decreases some of the shame.
Right.
So one hikikomori of 14 years shared his journey and said people ask him, aren't you embarrassed to still be like this at your age? He said when he was younger, he had a difficult time fitting in and having conversations with others. And later he had trouble fitting in at work. He made mistakes. And this really speaks, I think, to a different culture than here. Like for him, that was stressful because it put a burden on others.
Right.
His mistakes made others have to have stress or work harder. Like here, I think we would experience that differently, making mistakes. It would be more self-centered, not other-centered.
Right. Yeah.
So he said just it was built up stress from dealing with humans, which I get.
Yeah.
Totally get.
He said he kept it inside and then just one day something broke. And then when he became a hikikomori, he felt safe. So there's that instant relief from that stress.
Yeah.
Like once you withdraw and you don't have to deal with that,
could
you
see-
feel safe.
Yeah, it's like 3 days into your vacation, you know, the first 3 days you're still thinking about everything. And then that 3 days hits and you're like, I'm on an island. I'm in the middle of nowhere.
I'm like, I could do this forever.
I have no responsibilities. Good luck getting a hold of me. My phone is back in the hotel room.
I threw it in the water.
I mean, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I totally get that. Like once you give
Yeah.
yourself permission to turn off, it feels really good.
Yeah, I recommend everybody read this new book called Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. Presents a new perspective on grind culture and why it's detrimental to all of us and what we can do about it.
It's a good idea.
So this person said, you know, once he confined himself in his home, he felt secure. He had that sense of safety. So now in recent times, many hikikomori later, after quitting their jobs, after experiencing some depression, some are finding they had undiagnosed learning disabilities or are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And finally, things are clicking. So before they felt frustration with themselves and blame for not knowing why their personalities and behaviors were like that, like why weren't they like everybody else? And then some, you know, do become hikikomori as children, but most experience this after they go out into the work life environment and they suffer setbacks, like they're not able to fit in or they have some kind of traumatic experience on the job. And after they leave work, they get more and more disconnected from society And the longer they're disconnected, the harder it is to rejoin.
That's so
Mhm.
true. Like even just as a counselor seeing clients, because there's periods of time where I may not have as many clients. And then like just having that one in the middle of the day feels so much harder than if I have 5 in a row. Because like you just get used to not, and then you build up anxiety and apprehension, and then you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. And then it's over and you have more time again.
I felt that working at the
Yeah.
school when you get the summer breaks and it was so
Right.
wonderful, but then your endurance level goes down and
And then
the
you have to, like, build
startup
it back
is
up
so
again.
difficult.
That's why year-round school is kind of a good idea in a way,
Yeah.
because you just sustain it.
But let's not have kids start so early in the morning.
9:30,
Like,
it's fine.
If I don't have to do that for work every day, why do kids have
Well,
to?
and
Like, what are we
teenage brains-
preparing them for?
Research has showed teenage brains do
don't
not
have
wake up
one.
till 9:30 in the morning.
Why has nobody changed this yet? I
I know.
hate it.
Because
So
nobody has
Listen to our
voted
podcast.
us as president.
Presidents.
We could have a thruple presidency.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
let's do it.
How would we like,
Run.
We
no,
can
how do
work
we,
out the
how do we
details.
combine our 3 names, like how you would?
Oh, a
too?
portmanteau.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Naomi, Sarah, Macy.
Nara.
Nissanem?
Nessera.
Is that too close to S&M?
Naracy?
S&M. Oh my God, it is S&M.
It is S&M. Oh.
FML. It is S&M.
We
We're gonna have to hire an ad campaign person.
We can't
So
do this
good.
on our own.
No, because immediately we came up with bondage. So, all right. People used to say hikikomori.
Do it. Just saying.
No comment. People used to say hikikomori just needed to get out of the house and get a job. Like it was just sort of that compliance based, like just do what you're supposed to do. Just get out of bed. Come on.
That's, yeah. That doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
But now there's remote work options. So that's changing. You don't have to get out of the house and get a job. Instead of having to be quote unquote normal individuals, maybe you don't have to change. Maybe the neurotypical world is finally adapting to accommodate differences. I love this. One of the most, for me personally, one of the best things about the COVID years
Absolutely.
is I was able to attend so many huge conferences because they were
Mhm.
virtual and
Mhm.
I'm terrified of flying. And plus I don't like traveling anyway, because I like being at home and, you know, and I have people I have to take care of. Like the world adapted to me
Mhm.
and I thought it was great. It was like it widened the circle.
Mhm.
I didn't have to, you know, figure out, because travel is also expensive. So that excludes people.
Mhm.
Right. I oddly thought about this earlier this morning about like how, way back, much smaller communities, villages, tribes, right? Like, and the scope of influence was fairly small, and that was okay, as long as you're meeting your needs within that community, and it could be small. And now everything's so big, like you're expected to have connections that are much wider than just your like small community. And that's exhausting.
Well,
exhausting.
research shows you can only be friends with 150 people max.
Oh, I can't. No,
That's a
I need
lot.
like 5. I need 5 total. The rest of you, I'm so sorry. I like you a lot, but I can't. I appreciate that you
Boundaries.
exist though.
Mhm.
I really do.
In the past, individuals who are gay may have become hikikomori, but are now seeing, so older gay men who may have become hikikomori because there was lack of acceptance are now seeing many young gay people who have come out, and they see
Mhm.
that the landscape has changed. But still, older gay people in Japan tend to isolate themselves, unlike the younger ones. And some can't even use a smartphone, so it's hard to connect with others in the community in Japan. So if you're a social worker in Japan, maybe that would be something to do, is try to connect these older shut-in gay guys with some technology.
Well, and I'm even thinking like the elder populations too, who may not know how to use technology as well. Like train them, teach them, give them computers. So they can do this.
Yeah,
You have a dog in your basement?
I do.
Okay, just curious.
One former hikikomori,
There are people in the basement as well.
my ex-husband lives in the
Okay.
basement.
It just, I thought it was outside and it was like, no, it's definitely in the
You're
basement.
hearing it through the heater vent.
Or it's a ghost dog.
There's only one furnace.
Portal.
There's one
No, it
furnace
was definitely down, not up.
for this entire building, so the sounds travel through the heating ducts.
This lighting is great because I'm sure I'm actually beat red right now. Yeah, you too. Yeah, you too. Yeah.
Mhm.
One former hikikomori said, if you're neurodivergent or a sexual minority, the normal people we imagine are in our heads don't really exist. We should acknowledge that having something different is what is normal. I loved that. I could totally relate to that. Embrace your unicornness.
That could
The
be
Abby
our
Normals.
slogan, Abby
Oh, yeah.
Normals.
That's right. When
Abby
individuals
One horn.
do want to reconnect with society,
Keeps like.
they can take baby steps, starting out gradually.
Right now.
So if you never go out, maybe just start going out at night. Because some have spoken about how the sunlight is just unbearable, like if you have not been outside. And then, only go to uncrowded places, and then at night to crowded places, and then to places without crowds in the daytime. Take baby
Exposure
steps.
therapy.
Well, and you kind of have to get them to have the why do that in the first place, and maybe just telling them, do you want 10
So you-
more years to play
so you
video games?
Don't
Yes.
die of starvation.
Right. I mean, like there's some real world, real health consequences of this, like earlier death, more health risks. You may not be able to fend for yourself. So,
A chance at happiness,
right.
real happiness.
And I'm not saying, so like I think our culture, I agree that grind culture is so unhealthy, so bad.
And individualism is unhealthy. People are
So-
afraid to ask for help even when they need it.
Somewhere in the
Because you're
middle,
expected to
though,
just do it on your own.
somewhere in the middle would be nice. I think for most. Some people
Balance.
thrive in those extremes, but I think balance is
Well,
good.
I think everybody read Rest is Resistance and see what you think. It really
Probably, like
changed my
slipping
view.
off a screen here.
Don't know.
Don't know.
So to wrap it up, a positive program,
It's a good little look for you. I like it.
Cafe
Just all-
Smile is run by a former hikikomori, and it provides employment experience for those who want to take steps into the workforce. And I love this because it's run by somebody who gets it. So people who want to take steps towards employment, they're considered helpers. So they can take breaks anytime they want if they feel tired or stressed out, and they don't have to talk to customers, and they don't even have
That's
to
nice.
talk to one another.
That's
I
great.
love that.
Mhm.
Right. I wish I didn't have to talk to people.
People.
They can come and go and work at their own
Oh,
You
place.
don't have to.
Sorry, that's my job. I do have to.
So the pressure to adhere to a certain schedule that would create avoidance, it's
Mhm.
eliminated.
Right.
Like, come whenever you want or don't.
Or
Talk
just-
or don't.
which is
Work or don't.
healthy to be out moving,
It's
being
taking
a
those
part of
steps.
something you feel
Yeah,
accomplishment and competency.
Yeah. Originally, the owner worked with teens, but says she's now seeing more older hikikomori in their 20s and 30s. And she said, Cafe Smile builds confidence. And I just love that, accepting, empowering approach. Let's meet people where they're at. And some of the people that started at Cafe Smile were able to go on and secure actual paying employment. So the way forward for hikikomori may be in accepting mainstream society's conventions, but not stressing conformity. So there's that balance piece. And that's it, hikikomori.
Did you find any statistics on suicide rates that correlate with this?
There were some documentaries that I didn't watch that did speak to some suicide, but I didn't really look into that aspect.
And
This is my, did we switch our lines? Wine.
No wine switching. It's fine.
No,
We
I
should do
really
instant
don't. I
replay.
really
We'll
don't
find out
know.
later.
Mine is always the
No.
one that's the most full.
Oh, well, if you are talking first, or is it always full?
Yeah, no, it's 'cause
No.
she did her presentation.
I'll shake them
first.
all, whichever one's the most full, that's mine.
Oh, your glass is half full.
My glass is always half full.
Okay, so you can't look at this one. Look at that one back there. That's your focal. No, not this one. Thank you.
That's really hard.
so
Here,
bright
how
in the
about this?
middle.
How about that? There, you're gone.
That's so much better
Oh,
because then
thank
I'm
you.
not like distracted on
Yeah.
my weird face.
Don't
That's
look at my
better.
sh-
Okay.
I'm
All right.
looking at it. I have my glasses off now, so I can't read it.
Okay,
anyway.
cool. All right. So my turn. But the reason why I brought up the suicide forest topic was because a lot of the social pressure of like, so like it definitely increased the amount of suicides during like the financial crisis and when people felt like they weren't meeting family expectations
Mhm.
and then they wanted to not be a burden and that leaving process. So it's kind of interesting, like coming and staying and hiding.
I've always thought it was interesting that suicide is illegal.
Right, we could go on.
Yeah, I'll
different
just
topic
leave it
for
at
day.
that.
Thought to ponder for folks. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Indonesian mass killings of 1965 to 1966. So first of all, have you heard of these?
No.
I had not either. This is considered one of the most horrific mass killings up to
What year is this?
65.
Hmm.
So this was
Is this
considered
the
right
killing
along.
fields?
No.
Oh, okay.
But this was aligned, like compared to the Nazi killings in World War II and China's like the
So this
Mao
isn't
numbers.
Cambodia that we're
No.
talking about.
Mm-mm. So this is up there, and this is something that is literally not even in Indonesian history books.
Why?
Right? Why?
What's
And we're
the
going to talk
cover-up?
about
Tell
this.
us.
And the US government has a big piece to play in it, which is very interesting.
Wait, the US government is
What?
covering up Indonesian history books?
We no,
Why are our hands substantial?
oh, you're gonna hate how much our hands are in this. I was like, wait,
No.
what? And then there's a part that is comical and like, really, I pay taxes for that to happen. So just
Okay.
Buckle up.
to buckle up, cowboy. I don't know how that relates. You don't buckle up on a horse. Right,
Strap in.
Okay, so this 1965 to 1966. It was also known as the Indonesian Genocide, Indonesian Communist Purge. So this has to do with communism. So you can start to see some overlap immediately in the US during that time that was happening. So these were large-scale killings and civil unrest that targeted primarily Communist Party of Indonesia, PKI. So what I want to make clear here is that this is not like Vietnam War, where people were killed and it was a war. This is just a political party that is separate from the main.
But US was involved?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Mm.
Yes, we'll get there. Don't you worry. So
Why don't
there
we
were
have
other.
such long fingers?
Who does?
US.
Oh, I
I
was
don't
like
think they're
really
long,
short finger.
creepy fingers that just trail and tendril places
Oh,
they shouldn't be.
And that's why, like, I'm kind of horrified that I've never heard of this. I've never been taught
I
this.
haven't
And
heard of or been taught anything.
well,
to
and
be
then
honest.
I'm going to read you what the US news reported after this here in a while, and it's going to make sense why it never like has been a flag on the US American brains, because we've
Okay.
kind of been brainwashed in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
So other affected groups, I do want to name some other groups who were affected by this. People who did have communist sympathies. So that means that they may not have even been party affiliates, but they were like identified as having sympathetic to the cause. Jawani women, ethnic Javanese Abagan, ethnic Chinese in the region, atheists, and alleged quote unbelievers and alleged leftists. So this actually did impact a lot of people. So the estimates are between 500,000 to 1 million people were killed.
A lot of people.
Right, so this is a lot. This is a lot. So during this time, and so this was from October 1965 to March 1966. That's a pretty short time period for this many people to be killed. So the atrocities were instigated by the Indonesian army under Suharto. These names are going to be similar here in a minute. So Suharto with an H versus the one with a K. We'll get there. So, and they received support from foreign countries such as the US and the United Kingdom. We'll talk about how and why in a moment. So it began as an anti-communist purge. There was a controversial attempted coup. Is that what they call it? Coup or coup d'etat?
The takeover.
A coup d'etat by 30 September movement. According to the most widely published estimates, so from the Indonesian government, it's like they're estimating on the lower 500,000 side. On more independent sources, it's going up to the 1,000,000, 1.2 people killed side. But there's no historical documents in Indonesia about this happening. So from who died, how it happened, all of that has been like purged.
I mean, that's
there-
like in our field. If you don't document it, it didn't happen.
Well, they probably documented and then burned it. Burn your journals, also an episode. But they're really relying a lot on US documents, which makes me concerned too about the validity of what's in those documents, since we were contributing to why this happened. Okay, so that being said, there was the purge was a pivotal event that transitioned to what they called the New Order and the elimination of the PKI as a political force. So the PKI was actually had control for a while, and they were doing relatively well. What they were following through and what they said, it was stability in the country. And so they were gaining political steam because of that. But the leader attended a global conference on, well, it wasn't directly communism, but it was one that the US definitely flagged as you have communist ideals. So it really put it in the limelight of the US of like, we're watching you. So it ended up leading to the fall of President Sukarno, okay, not H, okay, and the commencement of Suharto's 3-decade authoritarian president.
Okay.
I know, I read this and I'm like, I had to like get that straight. So this attempted coup attempt released this communal hatred in Indonesia. So they were really fanned by the Indonesian army, and they blamed the PKI. So what ended up happening, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia started doing black propaganda campaigns against Indonesian communists. So what that meant was, so this is all during the Cold War period, and the United States, its government, Western allies, wanted to halt the spread of communism. That was really their political goal, trying to bring it into that Western sphere of influence. Britain had reasons for seeking Sukarno's removal, as its government was involved in an undeclared war with the neighboring Federation of Malaya and a Commonwealth Federation of former British colonies. So multiple hands in the cookie jar happening.
So colonialism
Yes, absolutely.
has a part in this.
100%. So part of this too is that the PKI ended up, so the result of this, that the PKI was purged, disbanded after this happened. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the killings a little bit more. So, okay, Sukarno's, the current, it was a guided democracy, which is what he had initially, which was a coalition between both militia, religious group, and communists. So there's a lot of different influences coming into the government, and it was really increasing the popularity of the group. So I didn't know this. This was the 3rd largest communist group in the world. So again, why it would be on the US's radar at the time. They had approximately 300,000 cadres and full memberships of around 2 million people. The party's assertive efforts to speed up land reform, frighten those who controlled the land, and threaten the social principles, as well as the use of Marxist theory. Sukarno required government employees to study his Nassicom principles as well as Marxist theory. So like it was something that that kind of socialist underpinning was taught and not enjoyed by those who
I
control
need to look
things.
more into this part of history.
It was that's what you said, like I got lost for hours learning about this, and I still feel like I don't know enough because I was not taught anything about this at all.
They sugarcoat our history book.
It's so bad.
I feel like I want to know more about like that period of time with communism,
Mhm.
McCarthyism, all that.
All the isms.
The
Marxism.
That hunting for
Right.
people that were involved in it, I
Honestly,
wanna
started my
I want to know more.
I wanted to do my topic originally on like the during that period, the anti-communist movement and the like kind of blacklisting and killing of people.
Yeah.
Because that was a thing. And I remembered that. I can remember that from my history books. And as I'm looking that up, Indonesia kept coming up in my searches. And I'm like, what the heck does Indonesia have to do with any of this? And I went in and I was like, holy crap.
Not too many people know about that. You
Right.
uncovered like some hidden truths here.
But it's because we're told about this part that's been told to us to be okay to learn about. And a lot of what we ended up learning has only fairly recently been undisclosed. What's that called when they make it not confidential anymore?
Just disclosed.
Thanks.
Unconfidential.
I appreciate that. Okay, so okay, so he had this meeting at the time with the People's Republic of China. So this is where the US got scared because he met with China, a communist country at the time, well still, and which he called the Fifth Force, and he wanted to create kind of like a, let's see, make sure I get this wrong, a revolutionary group, or get this right, since Freudian, so get this wrong, a revolutionary group, whether they were nationalist, religious, or communist, stating, I'm a friend of the communists because the communists are revolutionary people. He said at a non-aligned movement summit meeting in Cairo in October 1964 that his current purpose was to drive all of Indonesia's politics to the left and thereby neutralize the reactionary elements of the army that could be dangerous for the revolution. Sukarno's international policies then reflected that rhetoric. Okay, so he attended that conference, freaked out the US, and then what's really interesting is, so you see my PDF here that I'm reading off of. I end up highlighting literally everything. So there's a point where I stopped highlighting because I'm like, this is all important.
I used to do that in school all the time.
You highlighted everything. Oh my God. This is so weird because I just met with a client this afternoon and we were talking about, because they weren't sure how to take notes in class with creating anxiety. And so I Googled, how do you take notes? And they say, don't fucking highlight.
No, I know. Because
they're like,
list making is bad too. List making.
They say it pulls
anxiety.
focus
Never
actually
ends.
from what's
Never ends.
actually important. And most people over highlight.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's
like that.
not a sentence. Not
Yeah. If you're highlighting everything, why highlight?
I stopped taking notes in my
stopped
master's
highlighting.
program because I was like, I'd never go back and read it.
Between
anyway.
that and
Yeah.
marking a book up, a PDF online, I feel like it's different.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the part that I was like, roll my eyes, I pay taxes. Okay. Okay, don't read it.
I'm really not.
I
I'm
know,
just like
you're
staring
just
that way.
central, so I
Yeah.
have to.
And I
read.
just see orange.
That's fine.
I
It's
just
all.
see-
it's the highlights. Okay, so here's the deal: is that so up to this point, the U.S. is already freaked out by them. So the U.S. the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, considered assassinated Sukarno, and we have this on record, and selected an asset to do the job. But instead of doing that, here's what we did. I don't want to use we.
Right.
The US government decided to produce a porn video
Wait,
Wait.
what?
with an actor
This took a turn.
portraying Socorno and a Soviet flight attendant to
Plot twist.
delegitimize him and paint him as a communist. However, the video was not released because the agency could not put together a convincing enough film.
They couldn't make a good porn?
I love
Wait,
the
what's
punchline
the
to your
porn?
whole-
What's the
whole
porn
thing.
supposed to be?
What?
What's the porn supposed to
So it's
be?
supposed to be, he's like having, it's like a porno with him and a flight attendant that somehow means he's a
Are
communist.
you asking what the plot of the porn?
Yes.
What the point of the
Obviously, so they probably put too much plot in is what I'm guessing, because most porn doesn't have a real plot.
I
It's
don't like a lot of plot.
You want some nuts with that? Puppy? I don't know.
I
Some
don't
nuts
need
with that
any
coffee, that's
stage
good.
set.
I like that.
Like, just get to it. That's me.
Like she comes out in the captain's hat and it doesn't make sense because she's not really she's not flying the plane. Who's
So
flying
they
the plane?
thought-
Nobody-
If you're in a porn, you're a
It's on the
communist?
ground.
right.
Like, is that it? Like, if you're in a porn, you're automatically a communist?
I guess. I mean, maybe
I mean,
it's a
I'm
flight
trying-
attendant.
I'm struggling to make the
I think
connection.
they're just trying to like
Maybe that's why it didn't,
tarnish
like
his name,
it
right?
didn't. Well, no,
Defame
it's
him?
not even. It's like yes, delegitimize him by specifically calling him a communist. Because again, in the U.S., we're like
Because
both
you're in a-
communists at that
But
time.
why is being in a porn?
They didn't release it because they couldn't make a good connection. Physically or mentally, maybe.
Because I still can't make the connection
I know.
about
I-
why being in a porn would make you a communist.
I know. So I'm like, why do I pay taxes then? If you can't put together a good enough.
You
porn
know
like
they
that-
spent millions of dollars on this project. They brought in secret experts. They were sworn to
Like,
secrecy.
is this like a
There are NDAs galore.
40-page document and this is 3 sentences out of it and I want to know more and I didn't have enough time.
And you know
I
that
don't
porn is
know.
out there somewhere.
That
that
it was never
bad-
released. It was never released. so
But
they
you,
have it.
it's somewhere. A bad government made
She's like,
porn.
"I'm gonna
Ooh,
find it."
I wonder who has that like access and they like just watch all the like rejected pornos that the government's made that never sent out to people. That exists somewhere.
And what year is this?
This would have been in this was in 1958. So this is prior to this stuff.
Oh,
So like again,
God,
setting the
58
stage.
porn is probably kind of tame anyway.
we were already
This is
yeah, she was
pre, yeah, this is,
do you want
though I do like
Just leave it on
old flight
Barely.
attendant
Neckline.
fashion.
neckline? Oh,
ankle.
ankle. So you like my
Wrist.
hot ankle?
There may have been breasts exposed.
Oh, boobies.
Yeah, because they always would expose like the female over the
But
man.
like they didn't even trial it. Like they didn't show it to
Well,
anyone.
I want
They must have had some reviewers or auditors who
Oh.
was like, no.
fucking Freedom of Information Act. If
Just
if
like the
people
point.
enact that, the government has to release it. That's
So,
what I think what you're
are
talking
you-
about before with that,
Maybe. Maybe.
those words you said.
Oh,
before.
I don't remember. Oh, about disclosing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, I don't think that's what I was actually saying, but that is the smarter way of saying what I was trying to get. at. Okay, so that was the thing that like, because I was interested and I was like, what the?
I am
fuck?
definitely.
And then I was like, why? I mean, obviously at this point we are so far in. Like you were talking about fingers in the cookie jar, like, or just in it.
I've
fingers
never
in it.
mentioned a cookie jar.
I said cookie jar. After you said fingers in it, because then I'm like,
She said
I knew
long
about
fingers,
I knew
and you
about
said-
the
I think
knew
I said
porn. I
tendrils.
knew about the porn ahead of time. You did say fingers, and that made me think about porn because of this, obviously. Okay, so let's talk about 30 September. So on the evening of 30 September 1965, a group of militants known as 30 September Movement captured and executed 6 of Indonesia's top military generals. Okay, the movement proclaimed itself as Sukarno's protectors, issuing a preemptive strike, according to them, a possible coup by the anti-Sukarno pro-Western Council of Generals. Okay, so let's flush this out a little bit. So he's still in power.
Why do you say flush instead of flesh?
I said it, flush it out? It
It's
is
flush it out.
No, it's not.
Yes,
It's
it
flush.
is.
It's flush it out.
Bullshit.
Should I look it
Hold
up?
on,
I would
Sarah.
I would go with flush.
You're both wrong. Here, let me explain.
Okay, but also.
You have a skeleton
I mean,
Like an
you're, I'm
outline.
sure you have a great reason.
You have an outline with like a skeleton, and when you add more details, you flesh it out.
I mean, I get that.
yeah,
I
no,
get that.
flushing is down a toilet.
Yeah, like
Because you're
yeah,
trying
Why
to
are you-
like,
get rid of
filter
the
stuff.
excess and
Mm,
to
no,
promote.
it's flush it out.
I'm looking at
I need an answer before I move forward. 'Cause I have said it twice tonight.
I
and don't
know. I'm like,
why.
why do you fucking keep saying
I don't-
flush it out?
I have no idea.
It's flesh it out. Flesh.
I don't think I've said that in the last
Flesh.
year, at least.
It's bothering me.
right?
Is it right? Is it flush it out?
To flesh out something is to give it substance
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
to make
that's-
it
and that's what I mean.
fuller
Build
I
onto
mean,
the
or
skeleton.
more nearly complete.
It's okay
To
to,
flush out something is to cause it to leave a hiding place.
Yeah. Like you're
That's what
flushing
we were
down the
trying-
toilet.
so, but to be fair,
The birds were flushed out of the tree.
they,
Because you don't
The
want them
murder-
in the tree. The murderers were flushed out because we were scared of them.
I'm just gonna move on.
Both the thing. It's I didn't know
Okay,
flush it out
They
was
both are the
Can
same.
you please write down our podcast name is Flush It Out?
flush it out.
Like,
Yeah,
flush it
I
out.
got it.
Because we will all forget about this.
Or do we
And
want to
depend on
flush it out?
No, flush it
Flush?
out. Flush, yeah.
Because it's more
The wrong
comical.
thing.
I mean, they're both
They're both
right.
the same,
They're
though.
both right.
I didn't know
I
flush
just
it out
don't want
was
to
a
talk
thing.
about it anymore. So no, I flush it out. The way you described it sounds way more poetic for sure. Okay, so following the executions, remember the like following the executions, the movement's forces occupied the square in Jakarta. So Jakarta is an interesting thing because
Where
there's
is
been
that?
in Indonesia.
Okay.
So there's been other like situations like this in other countries where US has backed in a similar way. And there's one specifically in this very long article that I can't remember the name of, where they actually spray painted Jakarta on the wall, referencing what happened here.
Interesting.
So it is known, even if we don't know it specifically here very well. So
We don't really know anything.
I
To be
know,
fair.
it's so bad. So what's interesting though, so that happened, and the leader, Sukarno, said, "I'm not part of this. Like, I don't align with this. This isn't me." He's already in power, first of all, and this is like to prevent some future thing. Is basically what the people who did it said. And he's like, no. And the people this group of people who did this were, what they had said were mostly, their words, not mine, illiterate peasants from remote villages, like poor, impoverished peoples who came together in anger and did this. It's not like a militia group that he put together. And I think that's important because what happened then is that all of a sudden this military propaganda campaign came out from Suharto, the age. He immediately deployed troops, dispensed a movement, trumpeting the movement's action as a danger to the nation. So he's using this now as a political platform. So he began to sweep the country on October 5th, the Armed Forces Day, and the day of the 6th General State's funeral. There's graphic images and funerals of the people who were murdered, tortured, and even castrated. And he circulated them around the country. So everyone's seeing this. Again, the actions of a bundle of people that weren't connected to the actual government at the time. The campaign was successful, despite a lot of falsified information, convincing both Indonesian and international audiences that the murders were PKI attempts to undermine the government under Sukarno. So, these people are trying to undermine the government, it's PKI, and built up tension, hatred that was already kind of building under the surface.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
So a total of 12 people were killed that night. Suharto ultimately presented it as a nationwide conspiracy to commit mass murder. And millions of people associated PKI with this. And one thing that they found was that this movement, so he tried to make it sound like this big mass murder happened and that their movement came as a direct result. However, that happened in between that moment, the movement ended, and the moment the armed masses, the mass armed arrests began. It's a lot of words. There was a whole 3-week period where nothing happened. There was no violence, there was no civil war unrest, like nothing. So this one isolated event happened by people who were not connected. 3 weeks of just pure silence happened, and then a response came.
From who?
From Suharno,
Mm.
who said that this was a mass murder, and they're responding to this mass murder threat to the government.
Interesting.
Right. Okay. So then what happened? So Sukarno still this whole time is constantly protesting this purge, saying that, so the army is getting involved now, and he's saying that this is burning down a house to kill a rat. So this is where the army is doing something separate from the government. So Suharno over the army is now acting independently of Sukarno.
So it's so confusing because the names are so similar.
I know. It took me a bit. So the army started stripping top civilian military leaders who may be PKI affiliated, just started stripping them out of their positions. Leading PKI members were immediately arrested, and some were executed pretty immediately. Army leaders organized demonstrations in Jakarta. So this is where, when it's referenced, it's kind of referenced from this point of, we're going to put you on display, execute you. So this anti-communist group that was formed included the army-backed Indonesian Army Students Action Front and the Indonesian Youth and Students Action Front and the Indonesian University Alumni Action Front. So a lot of young youth.
A lot of action fronts.
Right. Ended up dying in this. So a lot of the
I laugh and then you say that. I'm like,
I know.
Sorry.
I'm like, eh.
So a lot of the initial deaths
Exactly.
were, I mean, I timed it well, to be fair. So the initial deaths occurred during the organized clashes between the army and the PKI. So some Indonesian armed forces units who were sympathetic to communism and were trying to resist the crackdown that was happening. So there was some of that, but there really wasn't as much of like people turning and attacking like their neighbors. It was all once the army initiated the violence, then it was happening. So Sukarno's presidency is starting to unravel as this is happening, and Suharto begins getting more control following the coup attempt. The PK's top national leadership was all hunted, arrested, executed. And then in early October, PKI chairman Dupu Nusantra flown to Central Java, where the coup attempt had been supported by leftist officers. Fellow senators were there, and then they all of a sudden, like, okay, this unrest is happening, right? So these leaders come in to like, what is happening? They were arrested and killed shortly after arriving. So party leaders gone, eliminated. Okay. So the massacres themselves, the killing started in 1965 Jakarta, and then they spread. And with that, we don't know many details because, again, we're relying a lot on US documents, and you can imagine that's pretty distant from what's happening on the scenes there. The worst massacres were reported in Aceh, Bali, Central and East Java, where PKI support was the strongest. Situations varied from each of the countries, but the army was really at the center of all of it, and local militia. Communal vigilante action preceded the army sometimes, but not often. It was mostly the army initiating. So
I imagine people would feel like compelled to join in if the military is doing it out of fear.
Right. And they had all been shown all these horrific images of these people trying to take over their country.
Right. Propaganda is powerful.
Exactly. And being spread by the US as well. So we were in this also spreading propaganda. We were also blocking negative media externally as well. So it was kind of getting like earmuffs were being put on. so they
Control the
could do what they
message.
needed. So the anti-communist killings were then instigated with youth, assisted by the army. Most of the victims were not major political figures and were poor, lower middle class people, farmers, just people who were trying to live their lives were just targeted. Sometimes it was just as easy as like you knew a friend who was a PKI member could put you on that list. So very few exceptions, the killings were not spontaneous. They were very planned, very organized killings. Most of the victims were detained by the Indonesian army. So this I found horrifying. So initially, many of the lefties gave themselves up, right? Like white flag, okay, let's,
Surrender.
and they were all executed.
Oh.
Hmm.
So the white flag doesn't mean
No.
what we think it means.
Not if
It was calling yourself out, like,
right, which
hey, I was
It doesn't
Yeah.
give you safety.
right, which in this again, like this wasn't war. This was a party that a small group of extremists took action, and it was used to complete genocide of a group of peoples. And
To gain power. Yeah.
exactly. And that excuse helped other countries in political ways, and so it was reinforced, which is just horrifying.
Mhm.
So they thought it was safe to turn themselves in. It was not safe. One thing that's a little unique, so from these killings were done more like Rwanda than like in Nazi Germany, so it was more person to person than through like gas chambers, things like that. So they did things like shooting, dismembering alive, stabbing, disembowelment, castration, impaling, strangling, beheading with Japanese style samurai swords. Firearms and automatic weapons were actually pretty limited, and so it's typically things like knives, sickles, machetes, swords, ice picks, bamboos, spears, iron rods, or other makeshift weapons. So very horrifying. This was not a quick death, and many people were tortured before they were killed. Islamic extremists often paraded severed heads on spikes, and corpses were often thrown into rivers. And at one point, officials complained to the army that rivers were getting congested that ran into the city of Surabaya
Congested with
due to the
what?
bodies,
Mm.
all the bodies.
So just throw the bodies in the river.
Have you guys ever heard of that torture technique where they'd have someone like, I don't know, they put a bamboo shoot up you and then just let it grow? And it'd be like this is slow.
Up your what?
I think
Urethra or
I
your
don't know
butt?
where they would like start
Just
the
one of the
situation
holes,
in
one
one
of
of
the
the holes, and it would just
Oh,
and they actually kind of quickly.
what a slow.
It'd be slow, but it was still like it would
That's so strong. They could shoot out your insides. Wow.
When
That's
because you said
horrible.
bamboo,
Yeah.
I thought of that.
And I thought of, when she said bamboo, I thought of eskrima. I used to, yeah,
Oh,
I used to take
Oh,
Filipino
with the
fighting.
cool.
Yeah, it fucking hurts.
You can hear that snap.
Yeah, I mean, when I was training, you slip up, you get hit. Oh,
yes.
it learns you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
continuing, in some areas of East Java, their members lined up communists, cut their throats, dispose of the bodies in the rivers. There were rows of like severed penises that were left behind as like a reminder to the remaining
I don't
people.
like that.
The killings left whole sections of villages just completely vacant and empty. And often their items would be looted or military would take over their housing. Okay, so I also want to speak to local Chinese Indonesians. This was actually deemed as a genocide by what's the convention? I'll think of it here in a minute because it'll tell me.
United Nations.
Thank you. United Nations deemed this a genocide. It is actually, it's about 2,000 people.
Winner.
About 2,000 Chinese Indonesians were killed during this, which is less obviously than the total number, but as a group of peoples, they were specifically targeted, and it was identified as anti-Chinese racism, because they were identified as, oh, you must be PK, you're bringing PKI closer to China. So that's why it happened. It had nothing to do with whether they were PKI themselves, not saying that was legitimate either, but
Yeah.
because of their origin. So, and predominantly Christian islands is where this happened, of Nusa Tenggara. Christian clergy and teachers often were victims. So this just kind of flared, and it continued to happen until March of 1966, when they say either, again, there's a lot of like question marks around this because of not documenting or getting rid of records, when either there were no more suspects or authorities intervened. Some residents said that there was exceptionally high flooding in March of 1966, and this kind of signaled the end of the killings. So with that, I want to just kind of jump to, I talked about that. Islam was another group, religious group who was a religious group targeted here as well. Many people who were of Islam faith had to switch to Hinduism or Christianity after this happened. And this like went up until the 90s, which is like insanity to me. So arrest and imprisonment continued for 10 years after the purge happened. And that, again, the 1 million number being probably the actual estimate, but it's hard to know for real. PKI members who were not killed or imprisoned went into hiding after all others tried to, they're trying to hide who they were in order to still live a life. Folks who were put in concentration camps, because I was like, oh, maybe those who did get put in camps got released at some point. It said that the conditions were so bad that most people died within the first chunk of their whatever, from just starving or just poor conditions in general. So it wasn't any better in the camps at all. Okay. So then I'm going to just jump down to foreign involvement, because this is what interests me a lot, as well as, what was our US's role in this. So Cold War happening for the US during this time. The US government and the rest of the Western Bloc really wanted to stop communism. And with this, it's still obscured because there are still documents blocked by the US government. Some have been released, but not all has been released. It is known that at a minimum, the US government supplied money and communication equipment to the Indonesian army that facilitated mass killings, gave 50 million rupiah to the KAP Gestapo death squad, and provided targeted names of thousands of alleged PKI leaders to the Indonesian army.
I don't know how much a rupiah is.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but good question.
Yeah, who was the president at that time?
I'd have to check. Was this Roosevelt? We look it up. 1965.
That was not Roosevelt.
Probably not.
Probably Johnson, because didn't
Johnson
Kennedy
was a
just get
principal.
assassinated? Didn't Kennedy get assassinated in 63 or 64?
What year was this? Looked like 1965,
Public education system
1966.
does not do a service.
I have bad memory in general. So.
On her phone there was a crack.
That looked like a rabbit's ass. Actually looks like a rabbit's face.
Continue.
It also looked like a bunny. Bunny. Did you see the bunny ears and the little face and the eye? You see that?
I got this on Craigslist.
Oh, I'm like, why
pretty
is
marked
it?
up.
I put present in 1965 present. I'm like, what is this information? Present.
I was confused why this was taking so
Yeah.
long. It should be.
Autocorrect.
Come on, Google.
Okay.
Everyone internationally is making fun of it.
Yeah.
That's fine. We know.
It's Johnson.
Yes.
I was right.
Johnson.
Lyndon
Okay.
B.
All right.
Johnson.
Well, yeah, because
Johnson.
he took over
Okay.
because Kennedy got assassinated.
Oh wait,
Right.
on November 22nd, 1963. Yeah, when Kennedy was
Yeah.
assassinated, Johnson
right.
was sworn in.
Okay.
I know fucking something, people.
That's great. So, okay. So Robert J. Martin's political officer at the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta from 1963 to 1966 told journalist Kathy Kadan in 1990 that he led a group of State Department and CIA officials who drew up the list of 5,000 Communist Party operatives, which he provided to an army intermediary. He asserts that approval for the release of these names came from the top U.S. Embassy officials, including U.S. Ambassador to Indonesia, Marshall Green. So we provided arms, we provided information, we pointed them at it and said, go.
Johnson, what were you thinking?
So this was 2001 when records, the CIA attempted to suppress records in 2001. So they were going to be released and they tried to suppress it. They acknowledged that the US Embassy provided this list and ended up being released. So with that, this was not our first instance of providing lists of suspected communists to members of foreign governments. To be rounded up and killed is the intention. So they had done this in Guatemala in 1954, in Iraq in 1963. So besides US officials, managers of US-owned corporate plantations also provided the Indonesian armies with lists of troublesome communists and union leaders who'd be hunted down and killed. So it was.
Why is it
Not
killing?
alarming.
Like, why is that
The first go-to.
we're going to? Yeah.
Well, because politically, the US wanted the Communist Party.
But it shouldn't
gone.
be life and death.
Well, you
That's a bigger issue,
Are-
probably.
probably. Okay,
Oh,
so
there you go. President, let me know.
oh yeah, down there. Yep. So Robert Cribb, in
You can read
2000,
those words, Sarah. I'm
It's
so
very
impressed
far
with
away,
your
right?
eyeballdness.
in 2002, Robert Cribb says that there's considerable evidence that the US actually encouraged these killings by both providing the money to anti-communist forces and supplying the Indonesian army with the names. So there is no evidence, however, that the US intervention significantly increased the scale of the killing. So we can't say that like we provided this and this somehow did more than would have been done anyways, but you know,
And we were rich at that time. We're still like
yeah,
basking in our post World War II financial boom.
right. So, but part of the problems with this is that the United States never took responsibility as a like sharing guilt in this for the deaths that happened. Because there were multiple countries involved and everyone just kind of like, not me, I didn't do that, without taking accountability, which is effed up. So really, we may not have made or influenced more. I mean, there's no way to say that, but we definitely created the conditions for that, or helped create conditions for that to
Like,
happen.
how much did they know that their support was going to get to that point?
Well, and would they have followed through that if they, you know, oh, we have 3 giant allies behind us saying do it. Okay, we're going to do it. Maybe they wouldn't have done it at all, thinking that they would have had reprimands for that.
We donated some sperm that created that baby.
Right. We spermed that baby.
Spermed it up.
My dad said the word pumped today. He said, if you pump out a baby, and I said, never say that again. And he said, well, that's how it happened with your mom. And I said, shut up, I'm leaving now. Love you, bye, Dad.
Bye.
Gross. Okay.
I'm gonna pump it out.
Just pump it out. Pump it.
No, no, pump up the jams.
Pump up the jam.
You know
pump
that
it
song?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. maybe
Yeah.
That. I mean, I guess you're kind of fed up.
Kind
Pump
of.
it out.
Um,
Not exactly like that, but
So-
maybe if that song was playing,
It would help.
it would help.
so what ended up happening was a vindication for the US after our Cold War garbage. So let's see here. So there's one part I want to share. Where is it? Oh, of course I didn't. Okay. Where did my
You
one
stopped
highlight go?
highlighting.
I know I stopped highlighting. I know where nothing is now.
Nothing is important, yet everything is important.
Shit. Oh, there it is. See, I know there's one part where I was like, this part. Okay, so the entire goal for the US was to get rid of Sukarno. Like that was the main focus. And so whatever that took
With a K?
with the K.
That guy. That freaking guy. Okay.
I think if you look throughout history, Ks are generally associated with bad people. KKK,
Right.
Mhm.
you know.
I mean, K's,
Mhm.
well, the PKI was also the
It's a
group that targeted.
tricky letter.
It is a tricky letter. I already
North Korea.
Oh, this is what I was looking for. Okay. So this is what was released in the US after this mass murder of a million people. Okay. A headline in the US News and World report read, Indonesia, hope where there once was none. even though again, they were actually stable prior to this and most people were really enjoying the government. Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt commented in the New York Times, with 500,000 to 1 million communist sympathizers knocked off, I think it would be safe to assume a reorientation has taken place.
Oh, reorientation.
Right, knocked off.
That's
Kidding
so
me?
gentle sounding.
I know, after you say knocked off, that's also like saying pumped. Who are you? Okay.
Knocked up.
Are you from the 50s? The nationalist oilman H.L. Hunt proclaimed Indonesia.
We're gonna play that song as soon as we're done.
That's
recording.
fine.
We'll
That's
go sing
fine.
it at karaoke.
Yeah,
They said that Indonesia was now the sole bright spot for the United States in the Cold War and called the ouster of Sukarno the greatest victory for freedom since the last decisive battle of World War II. The Time magazine described the suppression of PKI as the West's best news for years in Asia and praised Suharto's regime as scrupulously constitutional.
love that word.
And it was hard to say, and it was
Scrupulously.
scrupulously constitutional. It was a Trump for Western Trump. It was a triumph for Mr. Nye there for Western propaganda. So
We did
really,
not say the T word.
so as this was released in the US, it was released as great fucking news, everybody. Communism is gone. Great. And
What does that
But we're not
say?
telling you how it happened.
well, or anything
Right.
like anybody in the 1950s, 60s knew anything about Indonesia at all.
Yeah.
So
No
they're just
social
like
media.
oh, the bad guys are gone and we helped.
Oh.
We made a porno
It
for
was
that.
so easy to control information then. though.
Oh,
Right.
God,
Oh,
yeah.
100%. Because like you couldn't trip on this like how I did. Because I like the thing I thought I knew all of, and then it was, oh no, I don't know.
There was no internet in the 1950s.
I remember my dad sitting at the computer, all the noises that are and I'm like, gosh, I can fold a whole thing of laundry before it connects to the internet.
Oh,
It was
I
a
can
long
hear that
process.
sound.
I know, isn't it just great? Like they couldn't even make it more peaceful. Like,
But once you were on, you felt fucking cool.
but couldn't they like mute
You
that
have
in
a
the
message.
system?
You have mail.
I
What's
know.
up? You got mail.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to have made that noise. Somebody created that noise to associate the connecting sound. It doesn't
It's
just make
related
that
to
noise.
CERN,
F did
I'm
that.
sure.
That's deeply disturbing. Who are you? Are you from the 50s? Okay, that's all I want to do. We're done.
All right.
Now you know about Indonesia and our horrible role and how it impacts them still today. They're just not in their history books. They're not taught about it. It's people still have to be careful about how they align religiously, politically today.
Well, if you didn't listen to our last episode, I talked about the husband stitch and Macy talked about
The triangle.
Yes, the Alaskan Triangle.
the land triangle.
Scarier than the Bermuda Triangle. I
As the
just
Jews say, as above, so below.
that's also a movie, a scary movie about hell.
Well, they
Oh.
stole it from Jews.
Did they?
So
I
if you want to support our podcast financially, be our supporter on Patreon. It's only $1 and you get access to exclusive content.
Get in here, Sarah.
Until next time,
That's a good one. Until next time.
consider balancing conformity with being you. Mm.
Connect with others so you don't become a
Hikikomori.
And don't trust your government.
Mm-mm.
Bye.